So we have go through how to create a ER model, and we have already go through normalization. We know sometimes we need to update our table in order to make the certain normal form compliant. So let's look at how we achieve this in SQL. Once you run into a table that actually have an issue, how would you change that? Now, there are two levels of table change. Just like when we create a table, we need to create the table structure, defining the attributes. Then we will need to populate the table, insert the data row one by one. These are two steps, right? So changing the table also involves two possibilities. One is you change the data. You change the data in the row, in each tuple. Another is you change the table definition. You change the definition of a columns, maybe add or remove a column, or change the definition of a columns. So we are going to talk about this in two separate sessions. The first is talk about how to change table data. Once you already have a table and it's populated with data, how do you change a certain data? Now, we will do this change with the update and possibly insert and delete statements. There are three possible approaches when you see a data mistake. Actually, this data mistake is not the best way to describe it. Sometimes it is the mistake. You make a typo. How many of you has made a typo when you enter your email or password or phone number when you are filling in some web forms, right? So mistakes still happen. But sometimes it's just something need to be changed. A customer move, the address has to change, right? So these are the things that may happen. And the approach that we may take, there are three approaches to change data. The first of all, of course, is completely drop the table and recreate the table, then run the insert again. Of course, then you need to update the insert statement. This is probably the most destructive way. Maybe you are just changing one or two rows in the table. Then there are millions of the data inside that table, and you have to drop and recreate the table and reinsert these millions of rows just because you are changing two of them. This doesn't make much sense, right? And this usually we don't do it. Now, the second way, of course, is to delete with a where clause, then reinsert. We just delete the two rows that we need to change and reinsert. That's a possibility. And the third way, which is more popular, is using the update statement. We're going to discuss these two. So first is delete statement. Delete statement, it will delete rows meeting a where condition. So usually delete will come with a where clause, just like what we are showing here. So you will delete from one table, a certain table. The delete statement basically has two parts. First is a keyword delete from, followed by the table name. That specifies which table you want to perform the delete action. Then followed by the where clause, which is a keyword started with a keyword where with a Boolean expression. If your row meet this Boolean expression, then DBMS will delete a row from the table. Now, it is possible that you don't specify where. If you do not have where, you just have a delete from, you are deleting all rows. Of course, this usually is not, I would say 99%, maybe 100% time, this is not what you want to do. Maybe 99%. This is not what you want to do. It can have serious consequence. For this reason, always try to keep a where clause, even if you really want to, if you thought you know what you're doing, right? Even if you want to put something like ID not equals to now or something, it's better than a delete from table without a where. So always make sure you have a where clause when you run the delete statement. Now, some example like a delete, when let's say we have whoever's familiar with Star Wars knows there's something called the Jedi Purge, where Darth Sidious basically kills every Jedi. So the way we do it in our database, however, is a delete from instructors where instructor affiliation equals to Jedi. This will delete all the rows that instructor affiliation value is Jedi. And now let's back to what we talked about previously, how Sql is executed. We mentioned that each time you execute a Sql, you are always running against the table, right? And the Sql and DBMS will go to that table, bring up each and every row, one row at a time. You use this row against the where clause to see whether this row meets the condition or not. If yes, then perform the action. And here it is delete. So if the row meets the condition, DBMS will delete that row. If the row does not meet the condition, then DBMS will skip this row. The row will be kept inside the table. This is how delete is performed. Remember we said DBMS will perform Sql row by row to each row in the table. If the where clause condition is met, then we are going to perform the Sql action, which is delete here. So in terms of instructor, DBMS will simply go through one by one. If the instructor affiliation equals to Jedi, then it will delete the row. If the instructor affiliation is not Jedi, then it will not delete the row. Okay, so let's quickly review insert statement. In its most complete form, insert will have three steps, three parts. Insert into a table, insert into keyword with a table name, indicating which table you are inserting data to. A column list specifying which column should be populated and the values. These three steps. And of course, sometimes you can, if your column list happens to be the same, in the same order and with the same amount of columns, all the columns of that column list defined in the create table statement, then you can skip this column list part. By default, it will go to the definition of the table. It will be the same columns in the same order, and the value will be assigned. You can also bulk insert from another table. The style, the way you want to do it is to insert into a table, still with column list, then you will do a select. Now, note here, you can do a select column list. The column list must match the column list in the insert clause. Then from table where some condition. In this case, the Sql DBMS will perform, again, row by row, check the row. If it meets the where condition, then pull the column list defined in the select clause and form the value list. Then the value list, each row will be inserted into the target table. The insert column list, again, here is optional, which defaults to the column list in the create statement. So now let's talk about, so that's how you can do delete and insert. You can delete the row and insert the row again. Insert the row, of course, with a new data. Now, what if I do not want to just do delete and insert? I just want to replace it in place. What you can do is you can use the update statement. Update statement will update all rows meeting a where condition. By this, you know that there will be a where clause in this update statement, right? So the update statement has also three parts. The first part is the update table. So it's a keyword update followed by the table name specifying which table you are going to update. Then you also have a second part is the set part, starting with a keyword set, and followed by a series of assignments. You will set the column 1 to value, column 2 to value 2, etc., etc. Where Boolean expression. If the row meets this condition, then the column 1 in this row will be assigned a value of value 1. The column 2 in this row will be assigned a value of value 2. Now, this is the first time you will have some glimpse of how this row by row execution may impact the result. See here, when we say we run select or delete, and SQL DBMS will go through each row and apply the action on each row, right? This may not seems very important because it's basically the same operation to all columns or all rows. But once you get to update, you will see that it's actually doing an update for each row. So when you say column name equals to something, it's not applied to the whole column. Instead, it's only applied to the column of that row. So each row, when you update, the value may not be the same. If my value 1, value 2 here are some calculated value or actually based on which row it is, then the assignment for each row may be different. Row 1 may have a different value 1 in column 1 than row 2's column 1. That's because we execute this update clause one row at a time, only for the rows meeting the where condition. And some example is like let's say I want to change the instructor Anakin Skywalker to Darth Vader, and of conveniently change the affiliation to sys. That's how you do that. You will do update instructor, set instructor name equals Darth Vader with a comma, and the instructor affiliation equals to sys, and apply the where clause. So this will only happen with a instructor name row, a row with instructor name equals to Anakin Skywalker. For anything else, like if it's a Yoda, then this update will not happen. Again, it will DBMS will go through all the rows in the table and delete a row. Sorry, it's not delete. I think I made a mistake here. Update the row. Update the row if it meets the filtering condition. Now, one powerful thing can happen is you can update with computation. That's when I say it's important to realize that the update is row by row. So here, let's say if I decide to increase the course, excuse me, if I decide to update the tuition for Lightsaber 101 by increase 10%, then I can do an actual tuition equals to, and then I do an update registration, set the actual tuition equals to actual tuition times 1.1. That assigns a 10% increase. Basically, you times 1, you get 100%, and times 1.1 get 111%, right? Now, this only happens to Lightsaber 101. But if I'm updating course for all department, for the whole department, if I'm not filtering on course name, if I'm filtering on department, whole department, let's say the data science department will have an increase of tuition of 1.1 to all courses, then what used to be 200 will now be 220. What used to be 100 now will be 100 to 110. So the change is based on what it was, and each row has a different value, because it have a different new value because it had a different old value. This is when you see that the update is not on column, it's not on the whole column. Although I mentioned actual tuition here, this actual tuition is not the whole column, not the whole attribute. However, it is the column value of that row, of the row you're updating, the current row that you are updating. It's actually a cell, the actual tuition cell in that row. Okay, so much is for update.